Good evening, Virgo. Okay, I want to start with the overthinking before anything else, before the future spouse, before the popular, because the overthinking is the thing. That is most in the way of everything else in this message being fully received and fully landing in the complete form it deserves to land in. Stop overthinking is the most important instruction in the title, not the most dramatic, the most important because the future spouse and the popularity that is coming both require a version of you that is not primarily occupied by the overthinking loop that has been the dominant interior feature of your experience for longer than is comfortable to admit. The loop, you have been in it, the specific mental movement of examining the same questions from every available angle without arriving at conclusions that are stable enough to act from, and therefore generating more examination of the same questions from newly discovered angles that produce more instability and more examination in the particular and exhausting cycle of someone whose mind is working very hard at a task that is not actually a thinking problem and therefore cannot be solved by more and better thinking, however sophisticated or sustained. Welcome, and hear this. What you are overthinking about is not a thinking problem. The questions you are overthinking have a different nature than the thinking being applied to them suggests they are not logic problems that yield to sufficient analysis and produce clear answers when enough information has been gathered and processed correctly by a mind that is doing its job. They are feeling questions and intuition questions and time questions, the kind that resolve not through analysis, but through the lived experience of moving through time and seeing what the time reveals. That analysis cannot reveal in advance because what they are asking can only be answered by what happens rather than by what is thought about what might happen before the happening has occurred. The overthinking is trying to think its way to answers that only living produces. And the trying, while completely understandable, is also completely futile, in the specific way that applying the wrong tool to a problem is always futile, even when the tool is excellent and the person using it is skilled and the effort is genuine. I want to name what the overthinking is costing you in the specific and real terms of what its daily operation takes from you, because naming the cost is sometimes more effective at motivating the stopping than the instruction to stop alone without the full understanding of what the not stopping is producing in your daily experience of being the person the overthinking loop inhabits. The overthinking is costing you presence, the specific and irreplaceable resource of being fully in the moment you are in, which is the only moment available. For anything to happen in, including the things you are overthinking about, which can only happen in the moments that are actually happening, rather than in the hypothetical moments that the overthinking is populating with scenarios and outcomes and possibilities and dangers that do not yet exist and may never exist in the form the overthinking is describing them. The moment that is actually happening right now is the only moment that contains real possibility, and the overthinking removes you from it into the hypothetical future where nothing can actually happen, because nothing happens in the hypothetical, only in the actual, which is this moment that the overthinking is preventing you from being in fully. The overthinking is also costing you energy, the specific and finite resource that you have available for the actual living of your life, rather than the mental simulation of your life that the overthinking produces as a substitute for the actual living. That would answer the questions the overthinking is asking. But that cannot happen when the energy is being consumed by the simulation rather than by the actual. The energy cost of sustained overthinking is significant, and the energy that is being consumed by the loop is energy that is not available for the things that would actually answer the questions. The loop is asking, which require not thinking, but doing and being and moving in the actual dimension of your life where things happen, rather than in the simulation dimension where they are only rehearsed. Stop the overthinking, not as a spiritual discipline, but as the practical decision of someone who has identified that a significant portion of their available resources is going to an activity that is not producing the outcomes it is supposedly working toward, and who has decided to redirect those resources to activities that are more likely to produce what the overthinking was trying to produce, but was not and could not, by its nature, to what is not a thinking problem, and trust what the living will reveal. When the time for the revealing arrives, in the form that living always delivers, its answers in, which is direct experience, rather than the hypothetical and pre-experiential analysis that overthinking produces. Instead of waiting for the experience, that would answer the question more directly and more completely than any amount of advanced analysis could hope to. Now, with that foundation established, let me tell you about your future spouse. The person who is your future spouse in the energy I am reading right now is someone who is already in the vicinity of your life, or who is moving into the vicinity of your life in the near and specific future, rather than someone who exists in a distant and theoretical future that has not yet begun to form in the real and proximate energy of your actual current life. They are close. In the energetic sense of something being close that you can feel but cannot yet fully see, or that you have seen but not yet recognized. As the specific and significant person that this reading is pointing toward, I want to describe who this person is in energy rather than in physical description, because energy description will allow you to recognize them when they appear or have appeared in the full interior sense of your own knowing of them, rather than in the physical sense of a description that could match many people and therefore match no one specifically. This person has a specific quality of calm, not the calm of someone who is disengaged or unaffected or simply quiet by default, but the calm of someone who has done enough work on their own interior to not be governed by it in the reactive and uncontrolled way that most people are governed by their interior when it is not yet known well enough to be navigated from rather than reacted from. This person navigates where others react, and the navigation is visible in the specific and quiet way of someone who chooses responses rather than having responses chosen for them by whatever is happening around them without the interior work. That makes choosing possible. This person also sees you in the specific and accurate form of someone who looks at you and sees what is actually there, rather than what they expected to see, or what is most convenient to see, or what they are hoping to see, based on what they need from the connection, rather than on what the connection actually is. The seeing is accurate, and the accuracy of it is one of the things that distinguishes this person from others who have been in your orbit and who saw versions of you that were shaped by what they needed rather than by what was actually there to be seen. This person sees you accurately and chooses you anyway, which is the specific and significant form of being chosen that feels different from every other form, because what is being chosen is the actual version rather than a version that has been adjusted for palatability or manageability or the preferences of the person doing the choosing. I want to say something about what this person brings to the connection, because I want you to understand not just who they are, but what the connection with them specifically produces in you that other connections have not, in the same form or with the same consistency. What they bring is steadiness. The specific and rare form of someone whose presence in your life does not fluctuate based on circumstances or moods or the particular demands of whatever they are navigating in their own life on any given day. But that remains consistent in the quality of what it offers you across the full range of conditions that a real connection inhabits over time the steadiness is what the overthinking has been trying to create through analysis by figuring out in advance whether any given situation or person is reliably steady before committing to the experience of finding out through the actual encounter what the steadiness actually is for that specific situation or person. The steadiness of this person cannot be determined in advance through analysis. It can only be experienced through the actual encounter, which requires the being there, that the overthinking is preventing by keeping you in the simulation rather than in the encounter, where the steadiness can be directly felt rather than only theorized. Stop the overthinking and enter the encounter where the steadiness you have been looking for is available in the person who is approaching with the full and present version of themselves that the overthinking has been preventing you from being fully available to recognize and receive. Because it is also in the title, and it deserves its full attention. Before I close this message, popular is a word that can feel, in the adult context, slightly juvenile, like something from a period of life when popularity was a currency that people actively sought, and that determined a great deal about the quality of daily experience and who had access to what and who was seen as worth knowing and who was not. The popular I am describing is not that kind. It is not the popularity of the social hierarchy, where certain people are positioned above others based on criteria that are, in retrospect, rarely as significant as they seemed in the moment of their operation. The popular I am describing is the specific and meaningful form of being widely known and seen and sought for what you genuinely are and what you genuinely offer in the form that genuine things always attract when they are visible enough to be found and sought by the people who are looking for exactly that. You are becoming more visible in a way that is going to produce in the people who see you the specific response of wanting more of what you are offering and wanting to share what you are offering with others who they believe would also want it. That is the popular that is coming. The natural and organic spread of someone who is doing something genuinely valuable in a way that produces in the people who encounter it the impulse to share and to bring others into contact with what they have encountered because they want others to experience what they experienced when they encountered you, or what you create, or what you do, or simply who you are, in the specific and affecting form of a person whose being affects others in the direction of wanting more. and wanting to share with. I want to connect the three elements of this message now because they are connected. And understanding the connection changes how you receive each of them as parts of a whole rather than as three separate and unrelated things that happen to arrive in the same title without relationship to each other. The overthinking is in the way of the future spouse in the specific and concrete form of someone whose full presence is occupied in the examining and re-examining of questions that cannot be answered by examining and who is therefore not fully available to the person who is in the vicinity or moving into the vicinity of their life and who would recognize the full presence of you. If the full presence were available as the person they are looking for, in the form they are looking for them, the overthinking removes the full presence by occupying it with the loop, and the loop makes you less available to the person who is approaching and whose approach requires your full presence to be recognized and received in the form it is being offered. Stopping the overthinking frees the full presence, and the freed full presence is what the future spouse needs to find you in when they arrive, in whatever form the arriving takes in your specific life, in the specific timing of what is moving toward you right now. And the overthinking is also in the way of the popular, because the natural and organic spread of someone whose being affects others requires the full and present version of that being to be visible rather than the occupied and looping version that the overthinking produces, which is less compelling and less affecting and less the version of you that produces the wanting more and the wanting to share that the popular is made of. The full and present version of you is what the popular responds to, and the full and present version requires the overthinking to stop, to be available in the full form it is capable of being available in. When it is not occupied by the loop, stop the overthinking, and both the future spouse and the popular become more accessible. Not because stopping the overthinking magically produces them, but because stopping the overthinking frees the full version of you. That is what both of them are responding to and arriving for in the specific configuration of your life that this message is describing. Whew. I want to give you something practical for when the overthinking loop begins again, after this message has ended and the ordinary resumes with its full complement of questions. That will attempt to draw the thinking back into the examining and re-examining that the loop is built from, and that will feel, as it always feels, like necessary and productive work rather than like the futile application of the wrong tool to a problem that does not respond to it. The practical thing is this: when you notice the loop beginning, ask yourself one question, not a question about the content of the loop, but about its nature. is what I am thinking about, a thinking problem or a living problem. A thinking problem is one that yields to sufficient analysis and produces a clear answer that informs a specific action that resolves the problem. A living problem is one that resolves through the experience of living and cannot be resolved in advance through analysis of what the living might produce. Before the living has happened and the production can be directly known, if what you are overthinking about is a living problem, stop the thinking and return your attention to the living, which is the only activity that will produce the answer. The thinking has been trying to produce through the wrong mechanism for the wrong type of problem. That one question is the exit from the loop every time. When it is answered honestly, and the answer is living problem, and the attention is then directed back to the living rather than to the continued examination of what the living might produce before the living has had the chance to produce it. And closer than the overthinking has been allowing you to feel the popular is coming in the organic and meaningful form of people wanting and sharing what you genuinely are, and both of them are waiting for the version of you that is not currently in the overthinking loop. That version is the one that this message is addressing right now, before the overthinking has had time to resume its full operation in the space that a message like this temporarily opens by addressing you directly in the full and present form of where you actually are. Stay in this space a little longer after the message ends. Before the loop resumes, and let the full present version of you be what is available to everything that is moving toward you in the next hours and days, as the larger trajectory of what this message has described continues to move in the direction of your life and yours, in the direction of meeting it. Stop overthinking and let what is coming find you here in the full and present form of the person it is coming for.